There I am. I guess I'm live now. Let's put on a little bit of music so we can have some nice relaxing background. How's that sound? There's some music in the background, and here I am. Well, we're live on Facebook today. I don't know if anybody's going to join or anything like that. Welcome to the first day of me doing this. I'm going to do this for 100 days straight. And as I'm saying it and talking and looking at how many seconds have gone by, I'm like, 1 hour each day for 100 days. Didn't seem that tough the first time, but now all of a sudden I'm doing it, and here it is. So, one of the things I decided I would talk about on my first broadcast, which is today, welcome, is my story. People said you should tell people your story, and what's happened to you and what you've been through and what's going on in your life and all this. So here's my story. My name's Alex Alexander, and today we own a portfolio of companies, and each one of these companies is basically its own portfolio. So it's a fund of funds or a portfolio of portfolios, a company of companies. And so we have a holding company that has 5 companies. 3 of them currently make around $30,000 per month of top line revenue, gross income. So we've gotten to this point over the last few years. And 5 years ago, we were living in a van. And, it's the joke, living in a van down by the river was pretty close to reality. We weren't down by a river. We had bought a piece of land. We found a fellow who would sell us a piece of land on rent to own. So he was selling, we live here in Hawaii. I live here in this beautiful island, a big island, Hawaii. And we found this fella. He would sell us 1 acre of agricultural land for $200 per month. And we just thought that was the most incredible deal we could possibly get. Actually, to tell you the truth, that's not true. He was selling it for $450 per month, and I talked him into $200 per month for the first year because the place was in such terrible condition. I'm talking terrible, terrible, the worst possible that you could imagine. It took us 6 months just to clean the trash off of the lot. It's a 1 acre lot. We had about 100 tires, car parts and axles and doors and refrigerators. There had been some drug addicts who had lived there for quite a few years, and they did not take out trash or anything for 10 years. So 10 years worth of a group of people living there and semi-squatting and moving on and off and being on and off of drugs and mental issues and all this kind of thing. So all of their hoarding, all of their trash, all of that was all across this beautiful acre of land, just covered in rubbish. It looked like a humongous junkyard. And so this old fella, he took me over to the side, and it was only $200. He took the $200. I was $400. It was $200 for the down and $200 for the first month. And he said, just look around and just look at all of this here on this land, and all of this rubbish belongs to you now. Congratulations. So he gave me all of that, and we started making payments, and we moved on to the land. Somebody's calling me. Let's make sure it's not somebody. And so we moved on to the land, and all we had was a van. So we moved, and we would sleep inside the van and work all day, every day on the land and on the house. It had a house on it, a structure, about 600 square feet of this plywood structure. And it was completely full of trash on the inside, and it was just dirty and greasy and almost falling apart. And so we went out there and we tore out the floors and we took out all the walls, and we made it into a humongous studio. And after we had gutted everything out while we were camping in the van, we finally moved in and started camping inside the shell of this house while we were rehabbing it. And so that took about another 6 months on top of that. While we were in the process, the neighbor moved out, and the same guy that we bought from owned the place next door. So we bought that one as well for another $200 a month. So now we're only paying $400 per month, and we have 2 acres of land and 2 shacks. So we sold the other shack on payments, and now we had an income. So we were able to clean up the one enough for us to camp inside, bought the other one, cleaned up the other one enough to sell it, and the fellow who bought it was really, really happy. He wound up being our first buyer who actually paid off his entire property, and he has plans now for a permitted structure on that property, and he's just done really, really well. He was another success story. He started his own business as well while he was doing that. One of the big things that can happen while you're uh, doing this kind of thing is you can save up tons and tons of money, because when you take your living expenses down to like $300 per month, and I'll let that sink in for a minute. We took our living expenses down to $300 per month. That was everything it cost us. That was propane, our cell phone bill, car insurance, and the rent on our rent to own lot. And that's it. We haul free water. Um, we had no power. We used solar power, and so everyone out there in this subdivision, this special place where we found that we went and lived, it's called Ocean View, Hawaii. By the way, if you want to go Google it and look it up, Hawaiian Ocean View Estates is the name of the subdivision, biggest in the world. And so we went out there and we were starting to do well of having our own place. And even though we had our neighbor's place and we had our one little tiny bit of income, we didn't have any other job, but we didn't have any other expenses, no large expenses. So we didn't have to pay. We owned our van and our car. We didn't have a car rent, I'm sorry, not car rent, car payment every month. We didn't have that. So by getting our expenses really, really low, every little bit of money that we made was just a humongous financial windfall for us. So whenever we would do stuff like dog boarding. And this is really common out in Ocean View, to find a little something you can do. And you really only need 1 or 2 jobs per month to really sustain you financially. And that's good, because it takes you most of the rest of your time to keep you going, because we were growing our own fruits and vegetables. We grew chickens, we grew pigs, and this is agricultural land, so you're allowed to do that. So we weren't even buying chickens and pigs. We went to a park where we knew that there are a bunch of chickens that kind of hang around, just feral chickens. And we caught some. And then we put them in the pen, and now we own chickens, and they had more chickens, and they laid eggs, and they produced meat. And so we also did the same thing with pigs. So we got kind of lucky. We have a friend who catches pigs. They work in the macadamia nut fields. And right next to Ocean View is 300,000 acres of macadamia nut fields. MacNuts Hawaii owns a huge farm, humongous farms. And so it's a really fertile area that grows macadamia nuts, very well. So they planted a lot of it. It's right next to Ocean View. And we have a friend who works over there, and he catches pigs. So pigs, of course, love to eat macadamia nuts. The trees grow, they're large trees, and the nuts will fall down on the ground. And then the pickers don't pick the nuts from the trees, they pick them up from the ground. And that's how you harvest macadamia nuts. You go pick them up off the ground. Whenever it rains, it knocks the nuts down. And then all the nuts are on the ground, and the pickers go and pick them up. And then they go and, they process them. They take them out of the shells and they roast them and all that kind of thing. Well, pigs love macadamia nuts. So they, constant problem of having feral hogs all through the macadamia nut fields. The great thing is, here in Hawaii, we do not have rabies. We don't have rabies here on the island at all. And so there are a ton of things that we don't have to deal with that make this. That's why people call it paradise. You joke about, you're going to go to a luau and have a Mai Tai and it's paradise. Well, really, it's paradise because you can live here. It doesn't get cold. You're not going to freeze. The food just grows everywhere. You can just take a stick and put it in the ground, and that stick will grow into a tree. It's paradise. So we took advantage of those wonderful features of living here. And, like I said, there's feral hogs right there. And the feral hogs don't have rabies. They don't have a lot of diseases and worms because they're not living off of other dead animals like a lot of feral hogs are. They're living off of fresh fruit. They're living off of papaya falling right from the tree, guava, macadamia nuts. It's really high quality food. So whenever we harvest the pigs and when we slaughter, we'll clean out the intestines and the guts and everything. And so a lot of the people we work with they eat the organs. The organ meat is very high in nutrients. It's actually very cherished and prized. The organ meats, liver, it's very rich in nutrients. It's very good for people to eat. So a lot of the people that we work with, not from America, a lot of Pacific Islanders specifically, they eat the liver. So we get the heart and the liver. Whenever we slaughter the pig, we can look inside and see how healthy the pigs are. And so all the meat that we eat, the pork that we eat, you cannot even buy it in a store. It's not there's you can't eat the food that we get here. The food that grows on the land naturally, that's just feral food here. You can't even buy that high quality in the store. They just don't have it. You can't mass produce pork in the way that we can get good, clean, healthy type pork off the land. And so that's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I really was really thrilled with how good the food is and how nutrient dense just the easy food is. They talk about low hanging fruit. That's what makes this paradise. You don't even have to climb the trees half the time. You walk up and you pull down beautiful avocados. And so that made it really easy for us to be able to survive on only $300 per month. So I say that a lot because people get kind of shocked by it, and it takes them back. And so I want you to take a minute to think about it, about only having $300 worth of expenses per month and what that leaves you able to do with the rest of your money. And so, like I said, what we did was we kept cleaning up that house. We kept building that house. We buy a little bit of materials. And so we boarded dogs. That was one of the things that we did that was really good for us. We did a ton of little small jobs. You can do tons of small. For example, we had a truck. Kona, Hawaii offers free mulch at the dump because they have so much green waste. They have to get rid of it somehow. So they give it to the public for free. So you pull up there with your truck. They'll even use the loader, and they'll load up your entire truck with a whole bucket, and you just cover it with a tarp and you're out down the road. So every time we would come to Kona, Ocean View, Hawaii is about an hour away from Kona, Hawaii. Kona, Hawaii has Costco, Walmart, a lot of these stores you're going to be used to. Ocean View, Hawaii has only the grocery store, the gas station, and Ace Hardware. It doesn't really have a lot of the other stores you're going to want to go to. So most of the time people go to Kona quite often, at least once a week, sometimes more. So every time we came to Kona from Ocean View, we would get a load of mulch. So this was about 2 or 3 times a week. We were doing a lot of work back and forth. And so we would come into town, and whenever you run by the dump, you just grab up an entire truckload of mulch. And so that's what we would grow all of our plants and fruits and vegetables in. And after a while, we got so where people knew that we were constantly bringing mulch back. So people would pay us $100 for a load of mulch because they don't have a truck. They don't have any way to get a load of mulch. So you can make $100 on a load of mulch. You can sell a pig. We had pigs. We would sell a pig every once in a while. Boarding dogs is nothing but having a little fenced in area and walking the dog and feeding them and cleaning them up. So boarding dogs was really easy. There are a ton of little things like that. You can sell eggs. There's tons of people. You can go and catch a chicken at a park. You don't even need to go buy chickens. You can catch a chicken on the side of the road, and you can put 4 pallets together. You don't even have to go buy a fenced in area. You don't have to go buy materials for a fence like a T-post, hog wire, chicken wire. You don't need any of that. You can take 4 pallets, just put 4 pallets together to where the chicken can't get out. And then, a piece of anything over top so it has a little dry area. You have a chicken coop. You have a pig pen. I mean, it's going to cost you maybe $10 worth of screws to screw that together so that the pig doesn't get out or the chicken doesn't get out. That's really all there is to it. I might be making this sound like it's super ridiculously simple, and it really is. It's really that simple to just catch a chicken at a park, take it to the land that you're living on, and you have eggs and you have chicken. I'll move on from talking about that. I know I've been going on and on about chickens for quite a while, and all that. And really, we were talking about the story of how we kind of got to where we are. That part of it is really foundational, and that's why I'm talking about it a lot. We spent all that time, living in that van and kind of being on the bottom part of the economic spectrum for a long time. We were living there and saving up all of our money. So even as we were buying properties and having more, because we would buy properties and then we would sell the property. So that means we had more income. So each property we would sell, we'd have more income every month. So now, even though, we might have been making, I think there towards the beginning, we were making about $3,000 or $4,000 per month and only spending about $300. So, I mean, that's great because in about 2 or 3 months, we could buy another lot. You have about $12,000. About 10 or $12,000 was enough to buy another lot. So we did this for quite a while, and we had built up, I think we had about 14 properties. And one of the big challenges we had is we were going through buyers. We had set the price too high. And we didn't set the overall price too high. We were trying to have them pay it off in a shorter amount of time. And so the way that we worked was we said, well, we'll buy lots and we'll sell them. So we're basically like a bank. We're financing these properties and helping people to own property. And that was kind of the basis of our business, and it started working. And so we realized that we'd have to charge a high amount of interest because we had tons of people that were falling out right away. They would buy and they'd fall out within a month or two. So we'd have to charge, we couldn't charge too much of a down payment because whenever people are moving onto a raw piece of land, they need money to buy, a tent, and they need money to buy materials to build their house, and they need to buy gas for their generator. So there are a lot of expenses. You can't just spend all of your money right up front and then you move on the land and you're going to be moving off in another month. So we did a lot of moving the price around, moving the down payment around. A lot of the old advice we got from old mentors was you got to take a large down payment, try to get as much of a down payment as you can. So you tie the people to the land and they have a lot to lose if they leave. And so that was some of the advice we went with in the beginning. And it worked out pretty good at the beginning. I'd say that worked fairly well at the beginning. And we got to a point that, I don't know, I guess it just wasn't working anymore. We were charging this, $2,000 or $3,000 down. And we would notice that people would, because we started to talk to our customers. We didn't just sell to people and have nothing to do with them. We would talk to them and figure out what's going on in your life. And is this even a good fit for you? Excuse me, I'm going to have a drink. So we talk to these people and figure out, can you afford to move on this property? Is this going to be a good thing for you? At first, we really didn't care. They'd say, hey, here's the $2,000. We'd take it, move on the property. And then a lot of times that was the last money we ever got from them. They would sit there and squat on the property, and they did feel tied to the land. They felt like they had paid their $2,000. And so after a while, I wound up calculating, I figured out people would stay and squat. And so, we'd have a trouble evicting people here in Hawaii. It takes quite a while to evict somebody, and squatters can stay for quite a while. I'm talking about it can be a year to get people out. The minimum is about 6 months, just from following the amount of time you have to give people from the notices. It can be about 6 months in Hawaii. So that can be a big challenge. And we were just smacking right up against that big challenge. And we were new landlords. We had some folks move in. They gave us the $2,000 down, and then they squatted for the amount of time that if they'd have just paid one monthly payment, they squatted. They took up their entire time. That's what I'm trying to get across. Whenever you take a large down payment from people, they feel like they want to get their money's worth. If they don't get their money back, they want their money's worth. So they'll squat, even if they're not living on the land. They'll leave all their trash and all their cars or whatever it is. They'll leave it on the land till they get what they feel like they paid for. And this is a really strange thing I really never understood until we were doing this and being landlords in exactly this way. people are going to get what they paid for, and a lot of people, they're going to get what they paid for in revenge if they don't like what they got, what they paid for. And that's what reviews are about. That's what Yelp is about. People feel like, and here's kind of a little tangent for you. I've figured out that there are people that purposely buy something they know they're not going to like on purpose because what they want is to complain. And they're getting what they paid for. It might seem like they're being mean or rude or a jerk or screwing up your business, but really they're getting, that's what they're paying for. So that's one of the things that as a landlord we look for is that personality trait. I've kind of, we've gotten a little bit of because we are so niched down in what we do, since we see the same buyers that are successful over and over and over and over, it's we only sell that one type of property, and we pretty much have almost always the same type of buyer. And so they have the same kind of character traits. They have the same type of life situations happening to them right now when they buy. It doesn't matter what they were like before, what they're going to be like before. Right now, they're almost always in the same type of situation. And so we figured out also how to market to those situations. And this comes back to, if you're the avatar that you're selling to, that's the easiest. So in every business, you keep hearing a lot of mentors probably talking about this. I have. They talk about, what, serve yourself, like serve who you are. Like, what is a problem? Find a problem that you have. How did you solve it? Now just go solve that same problem for a whole bunch of other people. That's exactly what we did. We wanted to own land. We found the solution to that problem. And then we just figured out how to go give that solution to a bunch of other people as well. And so I think it worked out really well for us. And I highly suggest doing that. If you're like looking for a business to be in, or you don't know, I think a lot of people, when they're still working a job they don't enjoy, they have a dream about some other business. And a lot of times it's like too sexy of a business to quit your job for. Because your job is not sexy, probably. You probably have something boring, something you don't like to do, or else you wouldn't be fantasizing about something else that you do want to do, right? You wouldn't fall into this category of people I'm talking about. But if you do fall into that category and you're like dreaming of a sexy job to leave your job you don't like, do you only want to go do it because of the sexy part of that job? Because if so, that's the selfish part, and it won't work. It just won't work. Starting a business is an exercise of serving other people. And it has to be, or else it just won't work. Plenty of it can work short term. It can work plenty short term. You can be very selfish in the short term, and you can get a lot of money out of people, but it just doesn't last. So, okay, I'll get back to my story. Let's see. We were talking about, we started to buy some properties. And so now we're starting to learn like how to deal with our customers. And so we might have picked some of the more challenging customers to work with in landlording, being on the lower part of the socioeconomic ladder, pyramid, whatever you want to call it. Working with people on that lower part, as we could relate to them. We weren't even like landlords that were like, this is our land and you're going to pay us rent. We were kind of like, hey, we're in this situation too. We found a way to make it happen. You want to get in with us? We figured out how to get land, and y'all can buy some land on payments just like we did. And that was how it started with our business. And then word spread. And then as we kind of grew into, we don't live in a shack anymore. We don't live in a, off-grid situation. We actually have a very nice place that we stay now. And so one of the things we do is we go out there to Ocean View and we go live off-grid as often as we can, about once a week if we can schedule it in. And the reason we do that is to stay in touch with who we are and who we were and what the purpose of building this business was and who we're servicing. Like, we service a ton of people who are Pacific Islanders. So my wife, you'll meet her eventually. She'll come in the room one of these times when I'm talking. is her name's Kaipalani, and she's Hawaiian, and we live here on Hawaii Island, and so we deal with a ton of Pacific Islanders, and that doesn't only mean Hawaiians. There are tons of other Pacific Islanders who also call this home, uh, Tahitians and people from Fiji and Ponape and Micronesia and the Marshall Islands. And so we've actually found a niche of people to service, customers to service, who need housing and who usually don't have banking, and they've just had a lot of challenges working in the system of being able to buy land. Exactly the same as we were. We didn't have credit. We didn't have a lot of these paperwork to show a bank. And a lot of the folks that we work with they not only don't even have any of that, they don't have any way to get any of that or access it or begin to understand having a job. I mean, for example, we work with a lot of people from this one island named Arno, which is part of Inuiatak. And Inuiatak is a Marshall Island. It's one atoll away from Majuro, which is the capital of the Marshall Islands. And so this one Majuro, and then you go to a group, which is it's a ring of islands. It's about, if I remember, it's 20 something islands. And all together, all 20 of those islands that make up the Marshall Islands state of Inuiatak, all of those islands combined are 300 acres. And so the subdivision that we sell land in, that these folks live in with us, is 11,000 acres. So they're going from an area where all the access to everything they have in their entire world is only 300 acres. And now they're living in a subdivision. It's only the subdivision is 11,000 acres. And it's just a humongous change for them. They've never had some of the islands. For example, Arno doesn't have there's no concrete buildings of any sort. There's no metal buildings or anything like that. They're mainly what we would call shacks, plywood buildings, about the size of a shed. And that's how everyone lives. The great thing is, it doesn't get cold. So the weather is always good enough that no one freezes to death and people are able to live. So anyway, that's some of the people that we work with. And whenever they come and live in Ocean View, it's what we might look at as saying, oh my God, look at this terrible poverty, is a humongous step up in living standards for them. Having underground sanitation, sewage is a big step up for a lot of folks. When we talk about some of the trash that we see in Ocean View, we talk about the rubbish on a lot of different lots. Well, some islands have no way to get rid of any rubbish. They don't have any barges coming or going. Like, it's not like every week a barge comes. Like every 6 months a barge might come. And if it gets canceled that 6 months, that means the next one's not coming for another 6 months. So it might be a year in between barges. And that's fairly common. That's not an unusual thing to happen, that the barge gets canceled and there's no supplies, no anything. So these folks have come from an area where they're incredibly resourceful. I mean, you talk about taking apart a pallet, and you got half a house from the wood that's in a pallet from the way they can make it. They'll even take out the nails and reuse the nails. Everything is reusable and reorganizable to be made into something. So it's really been neat to see how they can do things. And it falls back onto us as a responsibility to teach them that, yes, we understand that, where you came from and how you've always lived. And now it's our responsibility to help you understand that you live here now and to live in the way that the people here live. So we live on a Pacific Island and we work with Pacific Islanders, and we try to help them all live within the way and live on the land the way that they want. So let's get back to how that affects, relates to us and our story. We, let's see, we had 14 of those properties, and we had been selling them and gotten the price a little bit more steady. We brought the price down some. We brought the monthly down some. We got to where we could only take $500 down instead of needing $2,000 or $3,000. And it was a big change to be able to get, pretty much anybody could come up with the $500 down and the $500 per month. And it was enough. That $500 per month became a big deal for us because we realized too much more than that could become a big challenge, but too much less than that brought a bunch of social problems to the people we were selling to. And I'll just talk about this for a minute. We didn't realize that, and even like HUD, Housing and Urban Development, has standards of how low you can make the payments. Below 500, we noticed in our buyers started to have problems, and it was never the problems of the people that we had done a contract with. Whenever it was below 500, it tended to attract other people to come and kind of bully their way onto the land. And then this comes into like a cultural situation we have with specifically our buyers. For a lot of our buyers, it's culturally insensitive to not let an uncle or an older person just stay with you. And like the elders are a very big part of their culture, and their age is a very big part of their hierarchy. So the older people, of course, have a higher, I don't know what you would call it, status and ability to move on to the land and to stay with you. And you have to take care of cousins, uncles, and even pretty like friends of the family can wind up coming and living on the land. And so what we found was below $500 attracted other family members or friends to come and move onto the land. And above $500, for some reason, it made the property buyer, the person who we actually had a contract with, to stand up for themselves and not let themselves have a family member move on, kind of push their way on and guilt their way onto the property. Have a sip of water. So those folks we were dealing with, we got our prices kind of set. We had our 14 properties, and we told ourselves we were going to retire at 10 properties and just have 10 properties. And that was the amount of money we wanted to make per month. And we were just happy with that. And we had already had 14 at the time. And we felt like we really needed to be helping more people because we were getting a lot of requests for land, more than we could fill. We only had our 14 properties. We couldn't just make land come out of nowhere. We had to figure out how to buy it. And so we started figuring out, how can we buy a large chunk of land? And we found this one group of properties. It was 36 1-acre lots, all right together in one block in Ocean View. It was in our niche, in our perfect area. And we went to look at it, and there's a large variation in land in Ocean View. Some of it's really volcanic, just desert looking, looks like a moon, looks like the moon for real, black rock, just moonscape. 3 or 4 blocks away, beautiful Ohio forests with 800-year-old trees and gorgeous, beautiful forests. Actually, the west part of Ocean View, the western boundary, borders the Manuka Natural Area Reserve. It's like a park. It's a big, huge park, and it's set aside to stay natural. So it's not going to be subdivided. It's not going to be developed and turned into anything. It's always going to be a nature reserve. And so that's one of the cool things about that part of Ocean View. So from this big variation of land, we found this one that was right up next to the park, and it was 36 acres, and it was really good for us. And it was way more expensive than we could possibly even imagine. We had no credit, no way to get a loan. We didn't have connections to people who had that amount of money who could loan us. It was, I think altogether, because this property turned out, it had some back taxes and it had some issues. And so I dug in and did a ton of research, and I found out about the fella who had bought it, and when he bought it way back in the day. And then I found out about how he had gotten divorced and then put it as a part of this settlement and a part of that. And it went back and forth, and it wound up with his kids. And I went and found his kids, and I talked to him about it, and I talked him into selling it to me, but I still didn't have the money. Well, even though they had agreed to sell it to me and I didn't have the money, I still didn't give up. I just kept talking to everybody I could. And then I used this law firm. I'll give them a plug. It's Anderson Advisors, and they had this. You can find them online, and they had a event. They had an event, and it happened to be in Hawaii. And so I wanted to go to it, but I didn't quite have enough money to really afford to go to it. I mean, we could sort of afford to go to it, but not really. And so, literally, the first day of the event, we got the amount of money we needed to go. Like, we got plenty of money to where we could afford to go and not be uncomfortable. And it was the first day of the event that it came into the account. I called them and they were like, well, everybody else had reservations and was like they have programs of everybody who was attending so that people could, it was a networking event. It was like a high level executive retreat is what they called it. And so we snuck our way in. I paid them the first day of the event. We showed up on the second day of the event. We completely even missed the first day. We went and flew. It was on a different island, Maui. We live on Big Island. Maui is a different island. And we flew over there without a reservation of where to stay and just went and attended the event. And it was really great. We met a whole bunch of people. We had a total, just a regrouping of our thoughts and emotions and the way that we were thinking of our business. And we realized that we really do need to be in service of the people that we work for. We really, these clients and customers of ours, the people that buy land from us, we work for them. We're their employees, so to speak. We manage the land that they live on, and we help them to buy it. And we learned that going to this retreat, talking to a lot of the people. And while we were there, we met a fella named Brent. And hi, Brent, if you're watching. It says 0 on the number, so I'm guessing nobody's watching, but maybe you'll watch it later. And I'll always be very grateful that we met Brent at that event. It was really amazing. He came and flew over here to, he went back to his home on the mainland, and afterwards we were talking. He got excited about it. He actually flew over here and he went and hiked up onto this land with me. Nobody else, people were like, send me some pictures and, maybe I'll look at a spreadsheet about it in a week or two. He got on a plane like that. He didn't have a hotel or anything to stay at here. We just put him in a B&B, but he just came over here right away and he went up there and we hiked around and we talked about this land and he looked at all 36 acres. We looked at all the tax records and we kept going through it and we figured out how to make it happen. So it was a year later until we were actually able to finish and make it happen. And that had to do with the sellers. The sellers went and, maybe they wanted some more money or this and that, and it just got a little bit longer than it started out to be. But Brent stuck with us. We brought in another partner, got the financing, and we bought 36 acres. And so now, we have over 50 acres. It was a big deal to us. And so we started selling those lots. And the deal that we had made was that we would buy the lots and that we were going to do the excavation. And so we have a land development company, and we had never developed any land. We just started a land development company knowing that we would one day. And so sure enough, we got in this deal with these partners and they decided to have us do the excavation. And so we made $60,000 to go do the excavation. That allowed us to go rent the equipment and make the deal happen. So that's enough of the story for today. My voice is getting tired and I have to go TT. So I'm stopping 20 minutes early, but I'm going to try to get back on live again tomorrow. Thanks you guys for anybody who is listening. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Aloha.